Welcome to KRQE's New Mexico News Insiders, 2025 Regional Edward R. Murrow Award winner for Best Podcast. Here's Gabrielle Burkhart and Chris McKee.
Universal access, free childcare for every New Mexico family in the state of New Mexico. That starts in New Mexico.
That was Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham making the official announcement on September 8th that every family living in New Mexico will receive free universal child care. It's a big deal for a lot of families, but it also begs the question, what is the catch? Is there one?
Yeah, I think there's a ton of questions around this, and we're bringing in somebody today who can answer the fine print questions you may have about this initiative. She is Secretary Elizabeth Groginsky, joining us here today, the leader of New Mexico's Early Childhood Education and Care Department, or ECECD for short. Thanks for being here, Secretary.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
So yeah, you were appointed by Governor Lujan Grisham in November 2019 to start up this, what was at the time, a new cabinet level department. We're now about 5 years in, right? What has the experience been like now 5 years in? What does ECECD do? And why is it positioned to be a standalone department? Because I do feel like it's not common to see an early childhood care department in many other states.
Such a great question, Chris. Thank you. Thank you for that. The Early Childhood Education and Care Department is seen as the prenatal to age 5 education department. We focus on those early years, the governor's cradle to career educational system. And so we are doing everything from home visiting to childcare, pre-K, early intervention, which is our family infant toddler for infants and toddlers with developmental delays or disabilities. They get support. And so we also focus on the quality, all the workforce supports and making sure we have strong early childhood professionals. I'll just add that when we came on, we were the 4th state. There are now 15 states that are setting up state-level early childhood departments or offices, and so I think this is a trend we're seeing in the country.
Yeah, and why is that? I mean, is it just, these services have always existed, but is it just better to just have people focusing on them as instead of being a branch of a large sprawling agency?
I think that's exactly the reason, is that they're seeing this period of life is so critical, and it's such a rapid period of development that when programs and services are spread across, for instance, here in New Mexico, they were 3 agencies, multiple divisions, you're less aligned. You have a harder time really bringing all those programs and services together in service of families. And I think our governor has been clear that we're building a family-centered early childhood system. So it makes sense here, and we're seeing it make sense in a lot of other states in the country.
And for those who aren't familiar, what exactly does ECECD do? Like, how do you describe what it does for the community?
Yes, thanks, Gabrielle. That's another great question. What we do is we provide grants and we provide contracts to providers, nonprofit primarily. Most prenatal to 5 services are delivered within private nonprofit or private for-profit businesses. We do have our school-based programs delivering pre-K. So we get money from the legislature and we make sure that it gets out into communities to, again, home visiting programs, early intervention providers, school-based pre-K, community-based pre-K, which are child care centers. Family child care homes are a big part of our what we call mixed delivery system to support families. So we work with thousands of entities across the state, providing them funding and resources, monitoring, tracking their data, helping them improve and provide quality services.
Got it. Okay. So free childcare, there's already been some families receiving assistance via a contract with the state, but there was an income cap on who could receive that assistance, correct? So tell us what was in existence before versus how this announcement makes it different. What's changed?
Yes, it's a significant change because we no longer have income limits. And I do just want to give a real big shout out to our governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, who when she came into office, we were only allowing families at 150% of federal poverty level or lower to access help paying for childcare. She immediately changed that to $200. When we had the COVID relief, we moved it to $350, then to $400, and now on November 1st, there will be no income limit for you to receive help paying for your child care. I do want to say, though, families still have to need child care. They're working, they're in school. We did make an exception for grandparents raising grandchildren, and then families with babies born substance exposed. But
Okay, so the income cap is gone.
correct.
Yeah, and previously, I know it's different depending on how many kids you have and the dynamics of the family, right? But can you give us a rough dollar estimate about what was the income threshold, the federal poverty limit there?
Yes, at the 400% for a family of four, it was at about $129,000 you could be making a year in order to qualify. And so now all families, when they need help with childcare, they can receive the assistance. And then our businesses, our childcare businesses, can rely on this stable and predictable funding source coming from the state to provide that care.
So the governor is estimating here one of the big parts of this announcement has really been the dollar figure of savings for families, right? About $12,000 a year of savings is really what that's been discussed. How did you arrive on that number?
Great question. So we took all of the rates that we pay, because what we pay for a child depends on their age, the type of setting that they're in, whether it's a family child care or a center-based, and the quality of that care. So all those things have different cost drivers. So we took all the rates and combined them together and divided by the number of rates of all those ages and places. And so it's an average. But a high quality infant the state's going to pay about $2,300 a month to a provider for a 5-star center serving an infant.
Yeah, which is like another mortgage for some folks.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It begs the question, where is the money coming from for this? And then is it sustainable past this administration into the future?
We absolutely believe it is, and it's because, again, of the wise investments that the legislature have made and under the governor's leadership with creating the Early Childhood Trust Fund, which started with $300 million and now is nearing $10 billion. The interest from that fund is what supports the department's efforts around childcare. We also had 70% of the voters say, yes, we want to spend more on early childhood. Please take a portion of the land grant. That comes to the department, and that helps us fund pre-K. So our 3- and 4-year-olds, we have universal pre-K for 4-year-olds, again, supported by the land grant, and we're near universal for 3-year-olds. So it's a combination of those two sources, also federal money, and then general fund. And we do believe it's sustainable, given the trajectory that the state has been on with creating a universal system for New Mexico families.
Yeah, the funding sources there, particularly the land grant permanent fund and then also that early childhood trust fund, seem to be one of those, essentially you're taking some of the interest off and spending that, and it's sustainable in that form. Is that the way that y'all look at this as the state?
That's correct. The legislature gave us about $113 million more in this fiscal year 26. We're asking for another $120 million in 27. That will be of general fund, just to make sure that we can sustain this and support all New Mexico families with this critical support.
Do any lawmakers, like I've heard this question being thrown around, do Republican lawmakers need to sign off on something in order for this to actually go into effect? Or is it like, no more public hearings, no more discussion, like this is happening on November 1?
We do have, it's out for public rulemaking right now, so everybody has an opportunity to provide public comment, and there will be a public hearing. I believe it's October 9th, but we'll make sure we have that posted on your website. And we want to hear from the public, but it does not require statutory authority. This is authority that the state agency has through the executive. But of course, we do need to have the funding that will be passed, hopefully, through House Bill 2.
Got it.
We have heard some of the reaction to this. Those without kids can certainly ask, are those of us without kids, people without, children, also paying for this initiative? Is it fair to think of, our tax dollars going to police, safety, and other things like public school funding? Is this fair to sort of lump that into those core services there?
It really, early care and education is a public good. This is something that as parents, all families need access, some to more, some to less, and it's important that we complete this cradle to career educational system. We have free college, we have free K-12, and now we're talking about having universal prenatal to 5 services for families and children, so we can address so many of the challenges that we see in our state. And we know the research is clear. Neuroscience, economists, this is the period of life where you get the most bang for your buck. 13% return for dollars invested, less special education, less remediation, better social and health outcomes. So it truly is, as Lieutenant Governor Morales said, an investment, not an expenditure.
Mm-hmm. So even if, people without kids are like, well, my tax dollars also going to this, it's kind of like, well, yes, but the way that you all are looking at it is like, this is an investment that communities should be willing to help pay for, because it kind of hopefully helps everyone in the long run. It does.
It absolutely. And these are people who are, going to be paying taxes. The people who are working in the sector of childcare, but also they buy locally, and then they're educating and caring for our children for the next generation while supporting their parents and their families now to go to work. We've seen from the Chamber of Commerce and other business leaders that families who have access to quality, stable childcare are more focused at work, less absenteeism. So all those things we know that help support a strong economy in New Mexico we're gonna have that benefit from this policy decision.
We'll be right back with more of the New Mexico News Insiders.
KRQE News 13 investigations. One of the biggest cons in New Mexico history. How did they get away with it?
Well, they had an accomplice. The state of New Mexico.
A road rage encounter leads to murder.
I miss him every single day.
Did the judicial system fail here?
New Mexico's families, homes, and lives are left in ashes.
There's a level of anxiety.
FEMA has been an abject and abysmal failure.
Watch anytime on krqe.com or our YouTube channel.
So let's get to some more of the fine print. The governor in her announcement admitted that in order to truly offer everybody free childcare in New Mexico, we still need about 5,000 more providers, right? There's a supply and demand issue. How is the state addressing that?
Thank you for that question, and you're correct. We have a need for about 12,000 more spaces for especially infants and toddlers. That seems to be the hardest care to find, and it's very expensive. We have 3 strategies. One is we have something in the state called registered home providers, and they can serve up to 4 children in their home. And we used to have thousands of them in New Mexico, and now we have just a little over 800. So we're going to have a big campaign and really support them with on-the-ground resources and technical assistance to recruit people who we know probably today are caring for children in their home and have them become part of the sector officially. We're going to help get more licensed homes. They can serve up to 12 children in their home. And then we have a low-interest loan that is going to be opening next week through the New Mexico Finance Authority. It'll provide capital and operating to people who want to start a childcare business or want to expand a business they already have. So we're very excited about that. There's $13 million in there. We've asked for another $20 million of one-time money for next year to go into that low-interest loan. We're already seeing providers ready to open and expand their businesses, but we know this is our work ahead over the next year. So 1,000 registered homes, 120 new licensed homes, and about 55 new centers.
So you mentioned people are probably already caring for kids in their home. Are there any barriers for them to become partners with the state to get some of the funding you just mentioned? Like, do they have to train? Do they have
Yes.
to, get background checks, that kind of thing?
Yes, we do all the background checks, and we pay for that for all the licensed and the registered home providers. Everyone in their home over the age of 18 has to have a background check, so not just the person caring for the children. We do offer online, free, no cost to them, in Spanish and English, trainings, health and safety, and we visit them. We visit a couple times a year and provide support, but also monitoring. And we also consider families are so important to us because they're our eyes and ears every day going into these facilities. And so anytime a family has a concern, they can call the department, and we immediately respond and go out and evaluate and make sure that everything's okay. And that we can follow up with technical assistance or support that a provider may need to improve their care.
Got it. Okay. And then because there already is a supply and demand issue, will people just potentially be placed on a wait list if there is a supply issue for a child care facility?
Yes, that is a reality, and we recognize that. And we're going to work as fast as we can with the childcare sector, with business leaders. We've been reaching out to industry leaders. Actually, I saw Secretary Black was on here recently, and he has been helping us talk with industry leaders because, they have a direct interest. They want to help have their employees come to work. We see that our school districts are interested. Some of them have opened childcare centers to attract and retain quality staff. So we consider this an all-in strategy. The governor has put a lot of her capital to building early childhood centers. The state set an example by taking some of our state buildings and creating childcare centers during the pandemic. So I think we all have to be part of the solution.
So this all kicks off on November 1st, and our understanding is, if you have a kid, you still need to be going, that kid needs to still be going to a state-approved provider in order to receive the free childcare assistance. Will people still need to fill out an application then for ECECD assistance? It sounds like yes.
Yes. And we call them either state licensed facilities or registered homes. Those are the two terms. And they do need to fill out an application, and we need to see that they are residents because we know we have people on our border states that may want to take advantage of this. So they do have to be a resident of New Mexico and either be a citizen or have a qualifying immigration status, the child, not the families, just the child. And we do look at income because to use the federal money to pay for childcare, families can't be above 85% state median income. So that's why we'll look at income, but we're going to really work closely with families. So reducing administrative barriers on all sides for families, for the childcare providers, and for the staff at ECECD, because we realize this is a very exciting announcement, and everybody wants to, have that type of financial relief immediately, and we want to support that.
You just mentioned income, though. If somebody is making 85% more, like say they make, would they still get this free childcare?
Yes, they will. It's just what funding source we can use to pay for it.
Got it. Okay. So I also understand there are some daycare and childcare facilities who are not on the state approved list, like on the website, if you're looking at ECECD, looking for one of those licensed facilities, like you mentioned. But it may not be because they don't offer high quality care. For example, they may say, well, our operating costs are more than the state is willing to reimburse us via this agreement. They pay teachers more, their overhead cost is just overall more than the reimbursement rate the state is willing to give them. How is the state deciding on what to reimburse a facility?
Such a great question. We were the first state in the country to use what we call a cost model to determine where we should set our rates. So we look at all of our licensing regulations, we look at what a program is required to maintain. We look at the state laws. For example, most of these programs are required to give their staff 2 weeks of sick leave. So we build all of that into the model, and we set our rate very close to what it costs to deliver that care. So we feel that it's based on their true costs, and we're hopeful. We're going to work with all the providers to understand this. We actually are holding 2 town hall meetings this week for providers specifically to go over what the rules are saying, and we have eliminated the application fee. We've eliminated them having to annually renew their applications. So again, looking at building a system that works for families, supports the providers, and makes sure that our early childhood educators are paid fair wages.
We know there are some facilities out there, particularly I imagine some home facilities that are probably, a few kids being taken care of at somebody's house, but they may not be like on the books, so to speak, but be doing everything, to, in all likelihood, to the regulations that are in place. So we're curious, are there incentives to help bring those types of folks out of the darkness into the, the approved sort of status there? Are there incentives for childcare facilities to get on that state-approved provider list so that families can get reimbursed?
We believe that the incentive rate that we've put in place definitely will help providers say, yes, I can pay my staff a minimum of $18 an hour, entry-level staff, as long as I'm open 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. We found that's a challenge for families when providers aren't open during that at least 10 hours a day. The other incentive that we have put in place for registered home providers is we've increased that per child rate pretty substantially in hopes that those families who are taking care of maybe 2 children who are either related to them or their neighbors will see like, oh, I could get reimbursed for this, and I could get technical assistance, I could get educational supports, and truly become part of the sector delivering care. They already are, so I'm not meaning to diminish what, to your point, they're absolutely caring for children, very loving ways, and we want to make sure that we're recognizing that and reimbursing them and being able to hopefully make opportunities for more children to experience their care.
Yeah, because ultimately, if they did join that list, they would have to perhaps open up the roles, so to speak. And if, they went through the processes and they were just taking care of 2 kids, maybe they had room, according to the state, say, to take in 3rd, 4th kid.
Would be wonderful.
I got you.
Because we know that families are looking for care, and especially in homes, oftentimes that's where families with infants and toddlers want to place their children.
Yeah. But I think about, some of the people that I know who, maybe were paying a family member to care for a child during their 8-hour workday. That's 8 hours. It's not 10. So they wouldn't be able to be on this state approved list if they're only, working an 8-hour day.
Oh, no, they can.
Oh,
So
they
there's,
can.
yeah, there's an increased rate, from where we were in 2023 for everybody. But if people are open 10 hours and agree to pay their entry-level staff that minimum hourly wage, they get a higher rate. So everybody who's licensed or registered is eligible to receive the child care assistance from the state.
Okay.
How much they receive will depend on those factors.
How much service they're providing.
How much service they're providing and the pay that they're giving their entry-level staff.
So this next question was asked from the community. If you have a kid at a facility that is not on the list, for example, is there a way for parents or individuals to get reimbursed directly for the cost of childcare or even partial tuition reimbursement?
That is a good question. Not in the way the rules are currently. We welcome public comment, though, if people want to make that comment, and we can address it through that formal rulemaking process. But we do hope that more providers will come on, but we do recognize these are private businesses. These are their business decisions about where they get their revenues. So we do expect there could be some of those tensions, and we hope to be able to resolve them by working with providers and families together.
So come November 1st, obviously, we're kind of anticipating that there is some interest in perhaps a surge of some level of applications to get some of this assistance. On the ECECD side of things, do you feel you have enough staffers to process those applications? Because there is some level of investigation that has to take place and documentation. If somebody misses something or if there's a question, you got to go back to them and say, hey, what is this? We have a friend whose daycare told her, we're deleting your credit card on November 1st when this happens. We won't be sort of charging you. Will it be that quick to implement, though? And how quickly do you expect to kind of be able to approve those applications?
It's such a good thing, good question, and we are going to staff up. We're going to get some temp staff in to make sure that we can process what we anticipate will be a very large onslaught. I mean, not onslaught, but a good rush of, especially around the holidays. Everybody would like to have a little financial relief. The other thing that we're doing is we're looking at centers right now that have a lot of capacity, but maybe only 50% of their capacity is subsidized by the state right now. We want to go on site there and do some eligibility, just get paperwork moving in advance so that we don't have families rushing in trying to get through the door, but rather we're going out to these larger centers where we know there's many families there receiving care right now who are paying out of pocket. And we know that we can relieve that right away because they're qualified, they're in care, they need care. And so it's a great question, and we are going to staff up and look to make sure that we don't have the overwhelm, and then people get disappointed, and word of mouth spreads, and then we don't get the bang that we want, which is to provide that financial relief and to stabilize revenues for providers and have our early childhood professionals paid a fair wage.
Do you think that's a fair reality, though, is, deleting your credit card November 1 and it being a quick turnaround?
One thing that we're going to talk with the providers at the town hall this week is state government, as you know, pays after services are delivered. Private pay families, as you are, pay the month before your services are delivered. We are working on addressing that, but that fix won't come until spring. And so we know that there could be that month where they're not getting paid for the services till after they've occurred. And that's the conversation we want to have with providers at the town hall to say, what's the reality of that? How do we work through this together while we focus on making sure families get the financial relief, but also not wanting to see them impacted negatively?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
We'll be right back with more on New Mexico News Insiders.
Hey guys, Chad Brummett here with New Mexico Frontiers, the KRQE original series that focuses on tech and innovation happening right here in New Mexico. We've got a lot of great stories about various businesses, technology, and of course space exploration. So make sure that you follow us on air at KRQE and Fox New Mexico, as well as our KRQE YouTube channel online. In the meantime, let's get back to the New Mexico News Insiders.
When it comes to teacher pay and tuition rates, we know these things go up in the economy, especially lately. We've seen costs increase over the last few years even. Is this funding model accounting for that, and how so?
We have accounted for it in this year's rates. We adjust our rates usually every 2 to 3 years. The federal cycle is every 3 years. States are required to look at their rates that they set for childcare. So that'll be something, for instance, this last year, we increased our pre-K rate because the legislature increased entry-level staff salary for teachers. So we wanted to make sure our pre-K teachers were paid the same. So we do keep an eye on those types of changes and other changes that may impact the outcomes, the cost drivers for a child care provider. Like if they passed paid family leave or other things like that, we would always want to look at our rates to make sure that we're adjusting for those additional costs.
For the families out there who are maybe paying a family member or a trusted friend in their orbit for childcare, those folks are not maybe necessarily state-approved daycare facilities at this point or providers at this point. But they do spend, obviously, those hours caring for kids, babies, toddlers. Is there help for anyone, though, in that situation who wants to just maintain just sort of the status quo of getting paid, under the table or through their own private business that maybe isn't aligned, affiliated there with ECECD?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if parents want to continue to pay that directly or pay that provider, and that provider also could potentially still become registered and get some resources and funding from the department. But I want to emphasize we do support family preference and family choice, and that's what so much of this is about, is that we've seen families really limited by their ability to go to work, pursue their goals and their dreams because of the costs of childcare. And so we want to make sure that they have choices. Is it a family childcare home? Is it their neighbor who's always been helping children and that's where they want to go? We want to help support that choice as much as the person going to a center that's been in the community, or is a new center. So it is really about family preference. And that's something we've made changes in the regulations too. We used to count your hours if you came in and said, okay, how many hours? And okay, this is how much of a contract you can have. We say, well, what's your preference? Do you want your child in part-time care, or is it easier if they're in full-time care, even though your hours don't add up to 29 hours a week? You really need full-time care because of other responsibilities. So those are some important changes we've made that really underscore the family-centered focus of the system that we're building.
Okay. But in order for somebody to do that, like what Chris was explaining, like a neighbor or a family friend, that neighbor or family friend would be the one to have to put in the work to become a licensed provider.
And they can become registered. So we call them licensed exempt. So they don't have to meet all the licensing regulations, but they do the health and safety, they do the background check, and they get support around what they need in terms of child development. If they want to go to school and pursue that, those are options and opportunities for them.
Would it also open the door for them to have to take in potentially more children?
No.
Okay.
That's always a business decision who you serve. And I mean, of course, you can't not serve children with disabilities, or, you can't say I won't serve those children. But people, recruit and attract people to their businesses as they see.
Yeah. In every government program where there's a lot of money being doled out, there's bound to be people trying to take advantage of the system. What safety parameters are in place to prevent somebody from falsely claiming these funds?
We have really good guardrails in our regulations and our monitoring, and we go out, we do an initial visit, we review the application, we don't approve them until we see that, the staff and who the staff are. So it's pretty tight. We have an amazing Child Care Services Bureau that the leadership there has been there for 25 plus years, and they know the community and they know the providers very well. And we have not seen any way. I mean, I'm sure there's always a way, but we have a lot of guardrails in our regulations and in our monitoring processes that would prevent that.
It's something that you have to sort of see exists before you'd actually start reimbursing them, is kind of what I'm hearing from you.
Correct, Chris. That's exactly right.
Okay.
You have to see it, touch it, be there, look at all the sockets, see all the kitchen.
I see.
And see their lesson plans. We have to see the whole thing before they get a license.
Yeah, and I think that certainly comes out of COVID, where we did see it was a different scenario, but obviously a lot of money went out the door to people who just claimed they had a business, and now we're on that back end of that saying, oh, okay, this did not exist, but they got all these hundreds of thousands of dollars for that. So
PPP loan fraud was rampant.
Yeah.
But so this is pretty different as well.
Yes. Yeah. We put out a lot of money for COVID, but it went to operators. They had to attest. We validated it. They had to have a W-9. Well, that's a little technical, but they had to have, a proof that they were an employer in the state of New Mexico with a proper identification. And
I see. Okay. Are there age limits for kids when you say the free child care phrase there for all the universal free child care? Like, does it mean that elementary age kids in aftercare program, for example, is there an age limit?
The age limit for childcare, and this is through federal law, and what we follow is up through age 12. So that's what it is referencing for us when we say universal childcare. And it's important. It's important for businesses to be able to serve that range of children because it helps their bottom line when they're serving older children and infants and toddlers and preschoolers.
We recently covered this on our show, the fact that New Mexico offers so much money for not only early childhood, but higher education tuition through the Opportunity and lottery scholarships. But nationally, we still rank very low when it comes to overall education. Do you see these investments helping to improve those rankings in the long run, or how do you square those two truths in New Mexico?
Yeah. Well, and I think those truths were what motivated the governor and the legislature to create the department, to start the trust fund, to say, these are statistics we know we can change, but we can't change them without a monumental shift. And that shift started with the department and saying, we're going to get universal pre-K, we're going to have universal home visiting, and now we're going to have universal childcare. Because again, I go back to the neuroscience, the developmental science, the economists are all saying when you do it well and you provide families and young children what they need, these early opportunities, I mean, the results are just, they're game-changing for us as a state. And we saw that every year we do a family survey. 88% of families said their overall well-being improved as a result of having access to these services. So we know that the reality for many New Mexico families for so long was they didn't have what they needed. They were trying to get by, trying to make it work until they get to kindergarten, where we say, we'll pay for a full day for you to go. And we've changed that narrative here in New Mexico to say, no, beginning prenatally, we're going to give you what you need, and we're going to support you in the way, really what you want. And we've done a lot of work on home visiting, because oftentimes that was seen as something only certain people needed. And we've come much closer to where people say, I want home visiting. I know it's important. And then those home visitors connect them with childcare. They connect them with early intervention. And so it really becomes a transformed system that is family-centered.
Well, Secretary Groginsky, thank you for being here. Is there anything else you would want people to understand about this as it all rolls out? To be patient with us, because you've made some good points, and the team is every day we're thinking and strategizing and making sure that on November 1, of course, which is a Saturday, so we'll be anticipating the Monday, but people can start getting online and doing their applications. That we're gonna get through this, and we're gonna set the model, and we already have set the model for the nation in what it means to care for your families and your children, and to do it in a way that is culturally and linguistically responsive. I can't say enough about the people who work at the department, and a lot of gratitude to the governor for having such a strategic vision of what life could be like in New Mexico if all families had what they needed from the very beginning. And I'm excited to see how this plays out. Really appreciate you giving us time to talk about it. And please encourage people to go to nmececd.org/universal. We're going to continue to put more and more information up there and answer people's questions, because you're right, some people think, what's the catch? This can't be real. And we want them to know it's very real, and we're excited to be a part of this historic, groundbreaking policy move for our country.
Well, Secretary, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Secretary Groginsky for answering all of our fine print questions. There's probably more that we could have asked her, but I think a big piece, a big takeaway from this conversation is it's also about educating the providers and about what is out there, and also people who could potentially become providers with the state.
Yeah, we know that there's just a lot of situations, I'm sure, where people are, figuring out childcare on their own, and this seems like it's that effort to try to provide some assistance and bring those other providers out in some level of transparency that maybe would help financially for everybody.
Yeah, bring everybody into the fold, if you will.
Yeah. We appreciate your ideas and your questions. If you have any, let us know. I'm at chris.mckee@krqe.com, also at Chris McKee TV.
And I'm Gabrielle.Burkhart@krqe.com via email, and gburknm on social media. Thank you all for listening and watching.